What? An episode on a Wednesday? Could it be true? Why, yes. Yes, it is true, my little Chilluminati. And thanks to everybody over at patreon.com/ChilluminatiPod. We have now been doing minisodes for years. And when we love to get a minisode compilation out there, whenever we can't get a regular episode out there, our Patreon ended up still about a year and some months ahead of where the minisode compilations currently sit. We'd like that ideally to be about 3 months. So moving forward, you're going to be seeing every single Wednesday either 1 or 2 minisodes, and this will be happening forever. Ideally, we'll be doing about 2 minisodes every Wednesday until we're about 3 months behind the Patreon. And from there, every Wednesday, you're going to get a minisode. So more Chilluminati in your life, whether you like it or not. And thank you to everybody over at patreon.com/ChilluminatiPod for supporting us. And right now, if you want like a year and a half's worth of extra minisodes, head over to patreon.com/ChilluminatiPod. All right, on to the minisodes. There's no Jesse to stop us today. And I'm happy to have you all here.
Hey.
Welcome
back
to the minisode.
We're out here.
It's just you and me, Alex. It's just you and me.
That's
nice.
okay.
It's intimate, personable.
Yeah, it's kind of a different vibe. I'm gonna pause my serial retelling of the sequel to the Greenstone so that Jesse can be here.
Yeah, he definitely wants that. I know.
Yeah,
that.
I want to make sure that he doesn't miss a single bit of it. And I didn't know that we were going to be recording in this weird way this week, so it's okay. But I brought a ghost story for you.
Oh, okay. I'm ready to hear this ghost story.
Yeah. So this is from I found it through Mysterious Universe, but it's a radio show called Endless Thread, and it's about this woman in Georgia named Kelly, which is spelled just like my fiance Kelly, Kellie, and she has a daughter, a young girl named Madison, who's like I think 3 years old when the story starts. And she, you know how kids have imaginary friends that they play with. It's just a normal thing that kind of happens, and it's creepy always, but
always when a kid is talking to something that's not there. Oh, that's just like where horror movies were born.
Yeah, and so this is years later. Madison, the 3-year-old in the story, she said this about his appearance. Now that she's older, and so this is for you to read.
I don't remember seeing him for the first time. All I can remember is just him being there. I remember one time I had a little table and chair sitting in my room, and I would make Play-Doh sandwiches for me and him, or I would build towers and knock them down because he thought it was funny. I remember him being tall, he kind of felt like a father figure to me. He felt like my dad. He had like a beard. He wasn't that old. He was like in his 40s. He was always wearing work clothes, like outside clothes.
Yeah, so at first, Kelly was feeling similar to how a lot of people probably feel, where you're like, is there like a man coming into my house and hanging out with my daughter? Is there like a weird molester person coming? But then she realized, like, one day she was like, where is he? And she was like, he's here with us right now. And she was like, where? And like, she points to nothing. She's like, right there in the corner.
No, thank you.
So it gave her like some relief at first, I guess. But basically the things that she started doing started getting so weird that she couldn't like just let it be bygones anymore.
Right. Now it's like it's harder and harder to ignore.
Yeah. It started with this song that she started singing that she didn't know what. She kept asking her daughter where she got the song or what it was, and she said she learned it. Callum had taught it to her. So here's another quote.
I had never heard the song before. This thing apparently dates back to the turn of the century. And one day she started to sing it, and she was so little that I couldn't make out like a melody to it. It was just words. And so as she would sing it, I tried to catch on to what she was saying, but she really couldn't talk all that well. She was barely 3 years old. And so she had a babysitter, and I asked the babysitter one day, I was like, hey, can you give me the words to the song? Is it on a CD, or how is she hearing this so that I can help her sing it and we can sing it together? And the babysitter's like, no, I thought you guys taught her that song. I've never taught her that song. I don't know what she's saying either. And so I went home later on that night and she started it again. And I said, Maddie, you know where that you're hearing that song from? Where'd you hear it? She's like, oh, Callum taught it to me. He sings it to his baby. It's called Daisy Bell. And I found it years and years later when a coworker told me about it.
Isn't that crazy?
That's creepy. That's very weird.
So that freaked her out. It's like a song that her mom had never heard that she was playing. And she started to listen in on her daughter on the baby monitor. And she would just hear her talking to no one. Like she would just hear her
fantastic.
talking. And then there'd just be like a pause as if that person was talking. And it sounded to her like conversations. And she would hear loud sounds coming over the baby monitor. And then Madison would be like, stop it, Kellum, which is like creepy.
Yeah,
even if she's the
creepy,
one,
dude.
Even if she's the one doing it, it's creepy because it's like she's creating this like mischief personality, right? And so now she's starting to get truly freaked out, and
as I would be too.
Yeah, and so here's another quote from Madison as a kid explaining how it was as things started to get like a little bit more serious with what was happening, and like her mom was taking it more serious.
So my mom took the globe off of my light to change the light, and she didn't put it back up. And that was when I started noticing the tapping. I could hear something tapping on the light bulb at night in the room. Just tap, 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 just over and over and over and over again. And then there was the TV, one of the old school ones that had a button you had to pull out to turn on. I had one of those TVs.
Oh,
dude.
yeah. Classic.
That was when I think I played my 360 on a TV like that well before I ever got an HD TV.
That's the dial that everybody's talking about.
Yeah. And the TV would literally turn on in the middle of the night. The power button would be pulled out. It would be engaged. It was either static or it was the Star Spangled Banner. It was very poltergeisty. It really is. It wasn't until I was older and saw that movie that I was like, oh gosh, I know that what's about to happen. I remember trying to explain it to my mom and she just kept dismissing it. She was like, you're just sleepwalking. You don't know what you're talking about. Stop making up stories. You're scaring your cousins. Nobody's going to want to come play with you because you're weird.
So she kept an eye on her daughter and this imaginary friend, basically. And as time went on, her daughter started to get like really mean and having like tantrums.
Uh-oh.
And she finally got to the point where she was like, what is the deal? What's wrong with you? And she said Kellum was keeping her up at night when she was trying to sleep. And apparently what had happened is that up until now he'd been nice, but he's become meaner and meaner, and he doesn't want her to go to bed ever, and that he wants to just keep talking at all hours, like he doesn't want to be alone. And when when she fell asleep, he would like bug her to wake her back up and bother her, and that he started to look more like a mean skeleton look to his face. Ooh. More than he did before. And she was getting more and more afraid of him. And then one night she woke up to her daughter screaming in terror. And then here's another quote to
good God, this is awful.
Keep the story moving. Yep.
I heard her screaming, and not like a bad dream scream or I need you to come here scream. This was a terrified scream. I jumped up. I opened my bedroom door. She's hanging over the baby gate, trying to get over it as fast as she could, screaming for me. Mommy, help me. Mommy, help me. I run through the house. I go to pick her up. I pick her up over the baby gate, and she's inconsolable. She's screaming. I'm scared, and I look, and the curtains in her room are blowing. And when I say blowing, I don't mean they're just kind of like drifting in the breeze from maybe the heater or the AC. They were blowing as if the window were open, and a big gust of wind were blowing through the window, but the window wasn't open. She was scared. I was scared. This is not okay. This is wrong. We need to get out of here. So I grabbed her. I'm in my pajamas. I have bare feet. She's in a nightgown. We leave the house. It was freezing cold outside, and we had no coats. We had no shoes. It was just that scary.
Yeah. So apparently she said that Kellum had got really mad at her and grabbed her wrist and pulled her hair, and they didn't go home that night. So she stayed over at her best friend's house.
Possessive. Like it becomes possessive.
Yeah. And they were in the Bible Belt. So like, they were worried they were going to start getting stigmatized by having like weird, unholy shit happening at their house. So then she decided to reach out for help. And her father-in-law was a pastor. And like I said, she's trying to keep it kind of, low key because he was not into this. He like did not like the idea of this going on. And he would like actually like preach against it. And so finally she called him and was like, I need your help. And he was like, do not go back home, not till you hear from me. So 2 hours later, he calls back and says, you can go home now. You don't have to worry about anything else. go back, but we need to have a chat. And so she thinks she's going to go get reamed by this dude for like making him get up in the middle of the night or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, okay. I feel like this is like we got to talk about what happened.
Yeah, and apparently the whole house was like the door was like anointed with oil with a cross.
Mhm.
There were crosses everywhere, and there was like oil all over the place, which was like she was like freaked out by how like hardcore it seemed for something that she thought he was gonna like not take that seriously. And it's weird, but they never had an issue with it again. And so she started to wonder about Kellum and what the hell Kellum was about. So she went to Ancestry.com. And here's one last
all right. Oh,
little quote to round out the tale.
I only thought you could look up the family names on Ancestry.com, but you can actually do property searches on that thing too. And so we put in my property, and we also put in property around, probably within, I would say, a good half a mile of my home. And what we found out was that the property that was adjacent to ours in 1941, it was bought by the Beasley family. Pam Beasley's ancestry,
yeah,
right there.
from The Office, yeah,
Yeah.
from the television show, the only show.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. And the thing that had just absolutely made my blood run cold was when we pulled up the property history and we found out that the man who bought the property in 1941, his name was Callum Beasley, but not in the way that she had been spelling it, which is K-E-L-L, but C-A-L-L-U-M. I just got chill bumps. His name was Callum Beasley. Callum sounds a lot like Kellum, probably even more so to a 3-year-old. I just thought it was an odd name. So when I saw that actual name come up in the search for the property, I'd swear I felt every bit of the blood drain out of my face. But there's something even more chilling about Callum Beasley. He had 5 children. The youngest name was Madeline. She died when she was 3 years old, the same age Madison was when Kellum showed up. And it almost makes me wonder, was this his way of connecting to something? Did he just think of this kid was his kid? There was just too much of a coincidence for us not to sit up and take notice as like, okay, this is a little more than a coincidence at this point.
Yeah, and they reached out to some of the family over there.
Mm-hmm.
No dice, no. They had no interest. They were like, "You're crazy making up stories about my dead relatives like this. What the hell?" And
that's wild, dude.
Yeah, so that's that little ghost story. That's like from the show Endless Thread at WBR. You can check that out anytime you want.
I feel like your story is going to have more weight to it than even my story. And that's saying something, being a ghost story, because I was made aware of this article today, thanks to Tim of Legend over on Twitter.
Good old Tim.
And he was right. The more I read it, the more insane it gets. So this comes from Town Talk, which I've never heard of until this time. But let me read through this. Researcher says there are Sasquatches among us. It's simply a matter of paying attention. All right, Alex, you're just not looking hard enough.
Okay.
Let me explain why. This is in Kistachi, I probably pronounced that wrong, National Forest. No matter where Claude goes, he can sense when there's a Sasquatch around. He wasn't conscious of it earlier in his life when he was busy working and raising a family, but even then, he always knew Sasquatches existed. I like a man of conviction. You know, he knows what he believes in, and he knows.
He always knew. I like that. Yeah, that's like you and aliens.
Yeah. Well, you know. All right. I don't want to be lumped in with people like Claude. That doesn't do me any favors. All right. Continues. There are signs that Sasquatches are out there, said Claude, a Sasquatch researcher. They live all over Louisiana. It's a matter of paying attention to your surroundings. And to avoid harassment and ridicule, Claude isn't disclosing his full name or the locations in Kistachi National Forest where he's been conducting his research for the last several years. But he likes to talk about the elusive creatures in hopes that it will be beneficial in lessening the fear people might have of them. You might be asking, how does he know? Well, Claude has been able to communicate with them telepathically. Obviously.
Just like always.
He's able to, that's the reason, you know? Like the Sasquatches, he finds peace and healing being out in the forest where he loves to camp. But they talk about all kinds of things, including who they are, where they're from, and what their lifestyle's like. Quote, they are extremely intelligent. That's the one thing that people don't realize, just how intelligent these creatures are. They have a forest sense like a deer does, like a bear does. Huh?
I finally feel seen.
You finally feel seen. But they have a human side that's extremely intelligent, very rational, very practical. He's found that Sasquatches refer to themselves as the people, and they don't like being referred to as Bigfoot because they feel that term is derogatory. Just stop. You just got. Now you know what? I get it. We can't be referring to them as big feet. It's just rough.
The people, they want us to call them the people.
Yeah, that's what they're known as, the people.
That's not Googleable.
They have a very strict, I don't know if you know this, but they also have a very strict code of conduct, much more so than even humans do. The dominant male in the family is the lawgiver. His word is law, period. All answer to him. He said they have no ill will towards humans, but the main rule they must follow is to stay out of human sight. How very convenient. Claude says it was a female Sasquatch who first contacted him. I was just walking through the woods one day, and this voice says, "Don't come in here." I heard it just as clear in my head as you and I are talking. He stopped and heard the voice again. A female was in the thicket nursing her young. That was a private place for her, a safe place, he said. So he compiled and went another way.
Why is it such a like empathetic and like sensual retelling of this tale?
Yeah, it's very bizarre. Well, several months later, he went back in the woods and communicated with her again, asking her why she hadn't communicated with him before. Because your mind is too busy. From the time humans wake up until the time they go to sleep at night, their minds are constantly in motion, she told him. You wake up thinking about what you didn't do yesterday, what you need to do today, and it just snowballs. It gives us a headache. We don't do that.
I get that. These people,
For
the
them,
people
life
get
is
it,
simple, apparently. There's no complicated agenda involved.
I should go back to the forest.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe you should try
place.
and see to open yourself up to telepathic communications from the big feet.
I should.
Well, there is one last thing I think you should know. People wondered maybe where they came from. Well, lucky for us, they communicated to him where they are descended from.
Is it space?
Claude said another female Sasquatch told him that they are descended from the Nephilim. Oh. Those are the offspring that the angels had with women, as it says in Genesis 6:4.
Okay, so
that's
they're
where
aliens.
they're from. Those are the children of angels and humans.
Bigfoot. The people.
Yep. They may have survived the flood, or angels could have returned and had more children after the flood. Those who are half human and half angel are considered purebloods. They have the attributes of angels if they are pure blood, Claude says. He was told by another Sasquatch.
So they're like
they can
racist?
do spooky stuff. Like, that's kind of where I feel
they sound like they're racist.
It sounds like they might be up there with the tall whites, the Nordics.
Yeah, they sound a little racist.
They can disappear before your very eyes. They can travel in space and time. But they just call it traveling, not teleporting. Some lesser bloods can also travel this way, but all pure bloods can. And it goes on and on and on. And, I'm not going to keep going because this is insane. But if you want to read more about it, Sasquatches are the children. They're half human, half angels. And there's pure bloods, apparently, like in Harry Potter or something. I don't fucking know.
Yikes.
That goes in there with the zeitgeist of like those other weird aliens. It's all in that same sphere.
I like it when they're like granola sex hippies. That's my favorite. And they just want everybody to chill out. Yeah, I get that. I like that.
The ones who come down, ask for a little weed, want to hang out, jerk off, the good shit.
I'll help you, dude. What was that last one?
No, thank you guys so much for supporting us here at patreon.com/Chilluminati. That's the end of today's minisode, which is just me and Alex. It was fantastic. Alex, I'm going to show this on the main episode next time. I'm not going to spoil the true crime. I changed my mind, but it was my birthday last week, and my friends got me something amazing. I tweeted about it. I think you know what it is. I have yet to name her.
Okay.
There she is.
It's incredible.
It's a sexy lady gray with
incredible.
Beautiful lips,
it looks
some
like
titties, and she's caked the fuck up.
If Mathis had a B-52 bomber, this would be on the nose of that.
Yes, absolutely. That thing would be on there. I'd be hoping it was act like a semi-symbol for aliens to know I'm friendly.
You gotta call it Scully, but it doesn't mean anything to you yet.
Yeah, I can't. That means nothing to me other than the girl on the skeptic girl.
The girl on the
skeptic
X-Files. We'll get there, buddy. Don't worry. Your life will be complete soon. You'll be in the full circle. You'll go full circle. Don't worry.
Until then, the money you give us here makes me feel pretty complete. Thank you guys so much for supporting us here. Thank you so much for allowing us to keep doing this nonsense.
Have a great week.
You have a great week. We'll be back with Jesse next week for better or worse. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hello, my little Chilluminauts. Welcome back.
Oh, wow.
Jesse.
Wow.
It's good to see you. Welcome back.
Oh, wow. Wow.
We missed you, Jesse.
You guys suck. Oh, hey, hi.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to the Minisode world where we talk about really crazy things.
Really summing that up.
I don't want to go first because it's going to be the whole fucking episode. So
Yo, I'll go first. I got
take it away, Jesse.
I'm ready. Okay, so to the audience, but mostly to you two as well. Do you know about the 3-body problem? Do you know what that is?
No.
No, I don't think so.
Well,
maybe.
Get ready for some physics. All right.
Okay.
So, for physicists, predicting the motion of any 2 massive objects like stars or whatever, simple, easy to do. In fact, predicting the motion of any 2 anything is pretty simple. But when you throw a third body in, it changes everything, and it really becomes unsolvable. Basically, the idea of, let's say you have 2 massive objects and they get close to each other. Their gravitational forces are going to, attract various influences on the paths they take. And, you can describe that like in math, right? It's pretty simple, pretty standard. I think we all understand that. But when you add a third object in, suddenly the interactions between the 3 objects are just pure chaos.
Just too many variables or what?
Yeah, absolutely. Instead of following a predictable path outlined by the mathematical formula or whatever, the behavior of the 3 objects becomes what scientists, call, it becomes antithetical to the initial conditions of what's going on there. So whatever speed or position they were in previously, it ain't going to be that anymore. So think of it this way. If you, in one scenario, have 2 objects that orbit closely, maybe the third one is flung way in the distance. Or another, the third object might come in and eject one of the third 2, or they might all collide. Or there's so many good models. If you look up 3-body problem online, there's so many good, really cool models of the countless variations and variables of what could happen. And it's pure chaos. It is straight up chaos theory. It is like dropping that water on your knuckle. It is, who knows, right? And
like
so
pure randomness.
Absolutely. And that's why it's very difficult and insane for physicists and scientists to think about, because it's kind of like we're off the deep end here. There's no math that explains the chaos. This relates to our solar system because the big outer planets, they're doing their thing. They're on their own. They're fine. But us tiny boys, Mercury, Earth, Mars, Venus, the inner solar system, we're basically the 3-body problem. Right? Using that.
It makes sense.
Yeah. When they look at the inner solar system, it's baffling to people because using any of the way the 3-body problem works, we should, in theory, be in full chaos mode.
So does this not lead to is this like we leading to the, I used to be a conspiracy, like Planet X conspiracy, where there's like a planet we can't see that stays out of but it's like kind of doing our orbit, make our orbit make sense?
It's not leading there. It definitely is one of those things that I'm sure is on that path. Just like I'm sure you could also end up at, this is a deity created solar system.
Okay, yeah.
Fair. Because there's no answer to explain.
Right?
Yeah, so, because it's so crazy and so out there that people don't really have an answer. So you can take it to the nth degree. And so back in 1989, Jacques Lascar, I hopefully pronounced that last name right, was an astronomer and director of the National Center for Scientific Research in Paris. He calculated the Lyapunov time. Again, don't know how to say that.
100%.
It's basically the time it takes for any 2 trajectories with almost identical starting conditions to diverge in a specific moment. And so he calculated that for the inner solar system, it would be roughly 5 million years, right?
Okay.
Now, I literally just copy this verbatim because it's just hard to explain,
yeah.
So I'll just read it. So for example, if the initial uncertainty in a position of a planet is 15 meters, 10 million years later, it'll be 150. 100 million years, it'll be 9 digits more lost. So it'll be like 150 million kilometers, which is just the difference between Earth and the sun.
Yeah.
And he says, basically, you have no idea where that planet would be. And while 100 million years seems awfully long, our solar system is 4.5 billion years old. And yet, there is a lack of any real evidence for dramatic events, planetary collision, a planet being ejected into space. We just don't have evidence for that. And this is one of those puzzles that scientists are like, wait, what? Because when they delve into the math, there's some symmetries in the gravitational interactions going on, almost like a practical barrier in the chaotic wandering of planets. Like the inner solar system is just functioning like it's protected. And again, this could be, you can take it down any path,
any road.
You want.
Yeah, that's so open. Aliens we're a zoo planet. God is a little barrier. There's another planet we can't see that makes it make sense. Yeah.
Right. But the thing that I think is fascinating is they also said, in a billion years' time, that could definitely change just based on the math. However, the thing that's interesting that I thought about when I was reading this was, maybe this just goes to show that either one, solar systems that operate like ours are very, very rare, or two, all the solar systems that are left are the ones that have something like we have, and anything else that was more chaotic is just gone or destroyed or flung out into space. And so rather than thinking about it like we're special, it's like, wow, we are special, but in a different way. There's so many, there might be billions of solar systems, but think it could have been way more, right? And many didn't make it. And that's just because the numbers are so big, we can't really fathom like, wow, we're special, considering you think about how big the universe is. And maybe there's several trillions of solar systems that didn't make it because planets crashed into each other, suns flung into space. Like, who knows? And I think it's fascinating.
The things that you're talking about are so intangible and so like far away and so huge and so inconceivably just like powerful and strong and unbelievable that it's just so psychedelic to just even try and conceive of it.
It is. What did we talk about it last week when Jesse wasn't here, or the week before, where the James Webb telescope also kind of discovered that space is bigger than we think it might be. Either it's expanding faster than we thought it is because they're seeing galaxies that shouldn't exist far away.
So fucked up
due to the time they think that the galaxy ages is. So now they're like, well, maybe the galaxy is not the galaxy. I mean universe. Sorry, the universe is older than what they think it is, or
we have no idea what the fuck we're looking at is basically the point. Yeah.
No, they don't. They really went down to, okay, we're kind of like, oh shit. Okay. Well, the universe isn't expanding at a slower rate. It might just be forever. I don't know.
Absolutely
but that's one of those things where scientists for a while now thought that the universe was expanding, but the question was, it's getting faster, which didn't seem to make a lot of sense because an explosion over time
dissipates.
You think stuff would slow, right? But no, it's getting faster. But then the question is, and this is why science is so cool and why, physics and just like quantum mechanics, like just put it in your brain for a minute. Imagine there's a big bang. It doesn't matter how it started. Guy could have flicked a penny, whatever. Doesn't matter. But imagine there's a focal point, boom. And then over the boom, reality and everything we know forms, but it's expanding. And it's expanding rapidly. Further away from that starting point, faster than when it initially started. Great. All right. That's fascinating. Don't know how that works. But then the next question you should have is expanding into what?
Yeah, exactly. What?
Yeah, exactly.
And then like once you hit that point, now you're like out there, you might as well be on shrooms because now you're just like, okay, now that we're expanding into what does that mean?
Exactly. What does that fucking mean?
Is there a point where we can't expand anymore? Or is space, the concept of space, literally just, is it everything?
I know.
That's what's so interesting.
Yeah.
And that's what I think.
Now, not only is it expanding faster, but now we are seeing galaxies that should not exist at the age that the universe is. And like, that's what's baffling them is like, those shouldn't exist. Those should be either like long gone or one supermassive, and it's not. And it's like, wait, what?
But also time. Right?
Yeah.
We are seeing things, and that galaxy could be gone.
Oh, it might be, but they're saying they shouldn't be able to see it now. They're saying like it's gone.
Sure. But I'm saying like that just goes to show we're babies in the galaxy. Like we are space babies. We are 2001, a space baby sitting there barely finding our place in the universe. And I think that's what's fascinating. And it's if we could all stop fighting and killing each other for like, I don't know, give it a year. and just focused on like some cool shit like this,
Dude.
boy, I bet we'd be way better off. I'm just saying, like, if we look to the stars
This is
and
like
did
Protoss
something,
shit. Yeah, this is like some next level light being type shit.
yeah,
I feel like the past year has been some of the most fun like discoveries in space related, and they all the discoveries in space have only educated us in that we know nothing. Like all the discoveries have like shattered these people's understandings of how space fucking works, and that's awesome.
that's what's both awesome and upsetting, because if you're on the like I like my people dumb side of the
Sure.
line, boy, is it upsetting when you hear people say, oh, so the science was wrong. Like, dude, science is wrong all the time.
That's
It's
the whole
about
point of science,
updating
bro.
and
Yeah.
change. Yeah, it makes me so mad. It's like, that's the point.
Yeah.
Like, they get it wrong, and we go based off what we know, and then we figure it out along the way. That's
Yeah.
the whole point of it.
Exactly. Oh, that's so cool, man. It's like, it's crazy. Science right now is in such a weird place, especially with the like real emergence of quantum studies, like the past decade probably, has really just pointed that we just don't know shit. We just guess, and it just kind of works well enough for now.
We don't even know how our planets don't crash into each other. Like, that's where we're at. Like, we just learned, like, guys, we can't figure it out.
It's more evidence that we don't understand space, time. We don't understand what it is. It's crazy. God, what I want to talk about segues nicely, but I would rather give it to Alex first.
No. Go for it, dude. Trust me.
Okay, well, so this kind of goes into it just because, like, in terms of like news and of UFO and UAP, the past 3-4 weeks have been very like active. Even for those who are maybe on the outside of things, people are starting to notice there's a lot of things that are starting to pop up. You know, I don't want to talk about these too long, but Jesse, the Sphere video you sent us, which we learned was actually a 2-year-old video that was shown to Congress of this distant thing. So I actually showed it to my Marine buddy. Shout out to Jeremy. He's one of my best friends. I showed it to him, and he's like, so what? He was like translating what all the dudes were saying to me. Basically, he's like, well, that just means distance, and that just means this. But he's like, what we're seeing isn't the shape of the object. What we're seeing is the heat it's emitting, and it's miles away. He goes, that is miles out. So that's not the actual shape. And in fact, that it's moving like that miles away means it's moving at a high speed. So, and then he goes in, and then he goes, when it goes underwater, he's like, I don't know what that is. I don't know why it went under the water. That doesn't make any sense.
Is there anything that does that?
They're calling out the location and the distance in that video in a way that would be if a chopper needed to get over there and like reclaim something or get something out of the water.
Like
not that's what it is. He goes, that's just the way he knows how they're describing it, because that's how he was educated to listen for it. So that's why he knows where he's hearing. So yeah, it's miles out, it's moving, and it splashes down, disappears. We don't know. I've heard a million different reasons, from people who are super confident that's a buoy to other people saying it's like some like animal or whatever. But from what I have in like my secondhand information, doesn't seem like it fits that. It's fucking weird. We also have like the UAP.
Just really quickly to describe it, so I went back to watch it again, knowing what.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and
like knowing what you were just saying, because I was like, does the heat seem? Because you never really talk about like UFO heat. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so I'm looking at it again, like the heat signature. So I'm following along, and again, this is a video shown to Congress, and it is straight up like a little black kind of ovally looking thing
hovers, moves
above the water. And it's being tracked, and then after it is done moving a little bit, it's just slowly descends, hovers over the water, and then boop, right into it.
And you hear the guys go, "We have splashdown," and they're just like, "Yeah, it's gone."
But it doesn't look like a crash at all. It looks like an intentional slow descent, straight down, a pause, like they're fishing off the edge or something, and then right in the water. And it's super interesting. But yeah, now that you're talking about heat signatures, now I'm just kind of like, I've never once been like, I wonder what the kind of engine that damn thing's running on. Where's the exhaust go, you know?
Well, that's the problem. Is like, there's never an exhaust trail. The way it moves doesn't see any visible propulsion system.
So what could that even be?
You want me to talk about some of the wilder theories?
No.
Gravitational engine that can just manipulate gravity around it, which is why it can move in the way it does.
But why would that put off heat?
Why would it put off heat? I don't know why it fucking put off heat. I don't know how that works. I'm just telling you what. Like,
probably got a fucking nuclear bomb in there, bro. Yeah.
I mean, it could be like they could be running. I don't know what kind of power they're running on. Could be whatever machinery is on it.
Now I want to know what radiation looks like when picked up via Like
oh
one
yeah,
of those,
true. That's another reason
Does it
people are
look
like, why
like
is this
heat?
video? Why is the video so shitty? It's fucking thermal IR vision catching something miles out. Like that's why it's so garbage. Like that's what it is. But if it's gravitational, would help explain how it's able to go under the water and out of the water effortlessly, like without any resistance and move around just as quickly. But we don't know. We don't. That's part of the problem. Is the government has no fucking idea how they move. No idea. And then we had another video released of an orb changing course. I'm going to link this to you. Changing course and following a jet from 2021 over Arizona.
Is this new to us or new
to us? Actually, new to
the internet?
Is this like a just today kind of thing?
So you're going to see it being followed. There's a description of like the camera that's following it is like a camera to track it to make sure it's going where it's supposed to go, whatever.
By the way, shout out to the r/UFOs on Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
They like
It's not that kooky. Yeah.
put in the real work of being like fake, real. Like they do a good job.
Another thing they announced on the subreddit is they skyrocketed in people, and they're almost at 1 million people in that subreddit now, which is huge. That's never that's crazy. But what we're seeing is more looks like military footage following a jet in the sky, and it follows what looks like a little tiny black orb. And as it flies by it, the orb is going the other direction, and you can see it stop and fucking turn its entire course and just follow the plane.
100%.
And it's following the plane within distance. Like it's keeping up with it.
It's very close to it, yeah.
You watch it stop on a dime and just immediately is able to keep up with this thing.
It isn't even a stop on a dime. Like the plane is.
No, it just immediately matches its speed the other way.
Yeah, and this is again another one of those heat signature things. So it's super interesting because
you can see the telemetry on this thing too, which is great.
Yeah, you can see the heat coming off the plane. But yeah, this little black orb looking thing. Just imagine the plane coming left to right and the orb coming right to left. And they kind of, one crosses over the other. The orb crosses over the plane. And then about as it does it, within seconds, it isn't even like a stop. It's as if
it reacts with intelligence.
It didn't even turn around. It just saw the plane
and
then matched trajectory and speed with the plane automatically.
If there was a human in there, it would splatter their brains against the fucking back end.
It saw where it went and like change what it was doing, right?
Yeah.
What absolutely, we have on this, but it isn't like a goofy like. And no, it just looks. It's straight up. It's going and then keeps going, just following it.
It's casual,
perfectly following it. And at first I was like, oh, maybe it's a drone, but that's a jet. There's no drone that's jet.
Yeah.
Like that small that's flying the same speed? No way.
The details we have is this is from April 21st in Douglas, Arizona. It was filmed by a mobile scope truck chasing an A-10. This incident was then reported to the AFB. AF personnel copied the video you're about to watch. So this comes from a leaker inside the AFB from what we understand. And this is from 2021. It's crazy looking. It matches that one that you linked us, Jesse, like in a way of like just weird, almost nonchalant behavior in what it does, and then it just kind of goes about its day.
The thing that's interesting, I'm trying to figure out like what it could like. I'm not sitting over here being like aliens.
No, but you need to critically think. You have to.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what this could be. And at first I was like, all right, maybe it's the camera system, but that doesn't check out because it's doing its own thing. It's not like moving with the camera. I'm like, okay, maybe it's something closer to the lens, and it's just like some sort of accidental thing. But then there's cloud cover.
Yep.
And then the only interesting thing is at the very, very end, the jet ascends and this thing doesn't follow it then. And that makes me wonder, can it only go up so high, like that kind of thing? I don't know. I don't know what this is, but it is.
We don't even know the nature of it. We don't even know if it's an object. We don't even know if it's like like a
we know nothing.
Energy, I don't know. It's crazy.
And there's a bunch of other videos that have dropped this week. Again, it really feels like things are very busy on the UAP, UFO front, which I obviously love. But the thing I want to talk about,
both good and bad, because it's like excited stuff that's fake and.
Well, yeah, you obviously, like I said, have to critically think. You got to be able to parse what's questionable and what's not.
Yeah.
But what I want to talk about too is another potential leak that came out of somebody who works supposedly a leaker in the Department of Defense and is able to is basically trying to just get information out there. I'm going in here knowing, take this with a grain of salt. If this is entirely fake, it's at least a fun thought experiment, and it doesn't go into like the weird psychedelic realm.
I'm down for a fun thought experiment.
So we're going to talk a little bit about this. I'm going to go through the questions and the answers.
For those of you who go to look at that UFO that Mathis sent, in the chat below it, there is an absolutely comical chain about how One person, this Fixer Vince, wrote, "The mighty ships tore across the empty wastes of space and finally dived screaming onto the first planet they came across, which happened to be Earth, where due to a terrible miscalculation of scale, the entire battle fleet was accidentally swallowed by a small dog." And then the next person is like, they add where many a tale may certainly end, the fall of humankind was only the beginning. Inside of an unassuming canine, the visitors took advantage of their unassuming position and seized control of the host body. And then some dude went to an AI and had it write the synopsis for a review of this movie. And the AI wrote, "Underdog Overlords is a comedic yet thrilling," and that's the best title I've ever heard for a movie.
Overlords.
Underdog
Incredible.
Overlords. That's hilarious.
I love that,
That's
dude.
like done deal.
You can read the whole fake review. It is just, bless the internet sometimes, man.
Straight up done deal.
All right, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. Before we jumped into this, again, I want you to take this information with the understanding that, one, this guy claims to be something there's really no way to prove without him outing himself in a way that could get him in big trouble if he's truly part of the Department of Home Defense or whatever. And two, take it both equally silly as hell and how you would feel if it was realistically happened. I'm just curious of your thoughts. The things to know is that before we go into this, that they've been only able to know what the government only knows what it knows by the crash site studies it's been able to do. And even with that, what they know has been very, very little. And some of the questions are like, do other countries know of its existence? The same way we do. They've been looking at crash sites as long as we have. He also claims that it's mostly coming from underwater going into this.
That's so fucked up, man. That's the thing that's freaking me out the most.
So I'm just going to read you a question and an answer for a little bit here because there's a lot of interesting information. They said, "I know you said it's an all hands on deck situation if crafts start messing with our nukes." And he says, "Correct. How often does that happen?" About once every 10 years for the US. We suspect other countries have had similar issues and reactions. What kind of reaction is there when these events occur? A higher up joked months after the last one, I saw that, quote, "the phone rings everywhere but the president's office." In the same instance I mentioned above, they deployed multiple aircraft and a sub with serious intent. The sub didn't arrive in time. Fighters probably never saw the end coming. Is this related to the underwater structure the Gordon Cooper cited and Discovery Channel had to cancel that show for season 3? I don't know what that refers to. And he says nothing of those pictures.
Is that just like a theory online?
Yeah, probably like a show talking about it. And he goes, nothing in those pictures ring a bell. If you can see construction facility, you can't miss it. Because he's saying there's a giant construction facility under the water. And the way it works is, we'll talk about it here as we go.
Wait,
yeah, sorry, what? We're going to talk about, I don't want to, I'm going to want to jump ahead too far. I'm getting excited and talking about things that we're going to cover in a minute. It says, the tools you found on vehicles from crash sites makes you seem like you are faking it. There must have been more advanced and intruding tools than a fucking toothpick. We said the ships are seemingly smooth metal, no tools, there's really little for them to use. And he said, I had to think a bit about this one for multiple reasons, and I think I'll cover the abduction tools in greater detail. There are tools that induce a childlike state or something akin to having a stroke. We covered that. He's talking about abduction scenarios and what he semi-knows. The tools I didn't talk about are ones that are designed to take objects the size of pills and push them deep into your tissue and stomach. These tools aren't friendly and don't account for extreme pain extreme pain. There's also another tool that looks like a circular battery you would find in a key fob, designed for keeping your eyes open when deployed. It also stops the eye from moving almost perfectly. Then continues, how on earth would it be possible to maintain a secret with such a large amount of people constantly in the know? Not just over the years, but literally decades. And I think that's a great question. He goes, that's just it. They haven't been able to maintain secrecy. That's a major reason the previous management didn't mind us being so open with each other. If you mean more historically, as in the past 20 years or more, now you know why I find references to MJ-12 funny. Secrecy is all but gone. Now it's just about obfuscation and misinformation. And I can see that because it's kind of out of the bag that there's stuff in our skies at the very least, and the government we've watched slowly pivot.
It's so crazy how much stuff is generally accepted now.
Yeah. What extent of contractor or third-party involvement in your work? And I think that's an important question too, because that's what Bob Lazar says he was, a contractor out of MIT to look at a very small piece of a potential crash vehicle. And he simply says, not as often as you imagine. We do use them occasionally, though. And Anon mentioned Lockheed last thread. Such a great company, aren't they? Definitely wouldn't be the type to try to leak things to the public. Are there contracts that go out for UAP work? You normally have to sign and agree to a contract. What kind of language is put out in the government's acquisition channels to indicate a project is UAP or UAP adjacent? He goes, none. They show up and tell you where you'll be and what you'll do. You have to be top tier in your field. You also have to be clean, so you've never seen a speeding ticket. Like, you have to be like a perfect record.
Why?
In case the aliens use it against you?
Yeah, why?
No, for the government, so they can trust you. The government can trust you for whatever it is they're going to do.
I understand the concept of having a clean slate, so nothing, like, the government can trust you because nothing can be used against you.
Yeah,
Solid.
That's
snake.
why they do that stuff. So my
Yeah.
question is, like, are the aliens like, it'd be a shame if anything were to happen to your
Permanent
vehicle? Yeah, like, what?
Yeah, I guess. He also says, why is there so much activity happening in Mexico right now? They said they just avoid certain parts of the world because there's often crashes that happen there. What do they do with one of the drones once it is finished its task? They're not exclusively drones. It returns to the construction facility. The construction facility sits under the water and ends up constructing drones for specific needs and purposes. When you see a drone come out, it is constructed for that reason, whether it go look at a site, follow a plane, go look at this. That's why you see them so often, and they come out of the water, because there's a base under the water that apparently ends up just crafting these things.
If it's under the water, can't, like, people go look?
Dude, they can fucking float, dude. Who knows?
Well, they say they sent jets and subs toward it. They have said in the answers, he says they sent jets and subs, and once they get anywhere remotely close, it sinks as quickly as possible. It disappears. They've been able to engage it once and ended up getting shot down incredibly quickly. They said that its defenses are almost reactionary. They believe it may be AI or machine driven. That's another thing they said, because of the way it reacts and how quickly it reacts. It's just instantaneous.
Right. But that's like the military. What if, like, Captain Stu and his, I don't know, trawler went out there with a six-pack and were like, hey, welcome to Earth.
It's
Like, couldn't a normal person go out there? Like, where?
it may
I don't know. I
happen,
feel like-
you never know.
Like, hey, aliens, I brought you some brewskis. Let's chat her up.
Yeah, well, let's go a little bit more into that. They say he also said Oumuamua was not part of whatever is happening under the water. It's not the same thing. He has no idea what Oumuamua was, and he didn't even bother to guess.
So he's
has
like,
no
there's
idea.
two races: the sea people and the space
Yeah, no,
people.
yeah, he definitely went into the two race theory. So they go, is there a working theory on the origins? And he says quite a bit, but we think the construction facility has been around since at least 4000 BC.
What?
Has any form of intelligible, yeah. And he says there,
4000 BC.
he says see sightings of and paintings from the early eras of history. That makes it question. Yeah, exactly. I feel that way too about that answer. Trust me, I do. So again, take it with a grain of salt. You know, any little answer can be the giveaway that it might be fake. That might be it. Has any form of intelligible communication been established? He goes, it depends on your viewpoint. They mostly want very little to do with us until we start to talk about war and nuclear options. It's one of the reasons why you see them so often at critical events. Do they know who or what is creating these craft? Yes, as mentioned earlier, the mobile construction unit is responsible for the deployment and construction. Any potential that they are made by a higher branch of U.S. government? Absolutely not. What allows them to fly so fast, or what technology? Gravity manipulation and the materials they are constructed from, because they don't know what the materials are used, what they're made out of. We think the construction unit is AI driven. The response time to threats is almost instant and usually very calculated and well thought out. The majority of UFOs, as I mentioned previously, are built to spec and purpose. This is why they are always different sizes. The contents and equipment usually mimic the intended purposes too. So whatever's being made is being made for that purpose. And he says whenever they usually just try to avoid and disappear. They don't usually try to engage with like violence in any way. Jesse, you look a little skeptical.
Yeah, I mean, the more we get into like the catch-all theories where it's like, well, it's AI and everything is connected and they're all, the more we hit that, I'm like, all right, this is
that one answer alone made me feel fucking weird.
There's one more answer we're going to get to that
believe.
Makes me also feel a little bit weird about it. And makes me wonder. We're almost done. Don't worry. It says, do the UAPs return back to the manufacturing unit? Yes. Some come in and leave the planet, but very rarely. Usually the same number that comes in goes out unless special circumstances arise. Feels more like a carrier, but with construction capability. What are the purposes of them? Surveil us? The U.S. believes that they are not here to harm us. They only seem interested in us once they realize we are destroying things around us, including each other. One of the officials in charge said something that stuck with me, quote, "They act like keepers of a zoo, uninterested in the daily life of wildlife until there's a problem." Last, he says, someone asked about Skinwalker Ranch. He goes, "No idea, not my project. I know nothing about it." He says there were 2 rare elements found fused together that were found under a mesa, and I'm very curious what's going on there. And he says, I have no idea. He really does, like, he doesn't pretend to know other things. But the last thing, there's like, where does this thing typically stay? And he says the best they could pinpoint it to is it seems to stick around the Bermuda Triangle area.
Okay.
And that was like my I mean, it might make sense in terms of like UFO sightings. We do have a map to see where there's heavy UFO sightings. But still, exactly.
You know
but
what?
Still.
Screw it. We sat here and poo-pooed the Bermuda Triangle. And honestly, everyone kind of forgot about it, just like quicksand. Everyone forgot about quicksand. Here's what I'm saying. Bermuda Triangle needs a comeback. I'm here for it. I want this to be the comeback. You know what? Alien Orb Factory, Bermuda Triangle. You thought
I'm here.
Those pilots were flying over there in 1942?
Alien Orb? Yeah.
Alien Orbed. Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
I'm here for it. Let's do it.
He says like, you know, like, they're mostly on manned drones now, from what he understands from like the people that he works with. They were more manned early on, but they kept crashing. We kept taking, for whatever reason, and we kept like and they killing them and taking their bodies away. So they've slowly moved over to like.
Why would it be manned early on?
I don't know. Maybe they didn't think we were as dangerous until we fucking started splitting the atom.
Sure. But wouldn't it be more effective to just AI it from the beginning?
Maybe they didn't have AI. You know, maybe AI is new for them too.
They didn't have AI, but they made it to Earth and live underwater and create.
Maybe they got ChatGPT 6. Maybe it's not that far beyond us.
What if instead, my theory's better. Look, this dude, whatever, ignore him. But my theory's better. What if this
I have an answer.
Us from the future?
I have an answer. But continue.
This is us from the future.
Oh, yeah.
And
definitely.
We created this AI thing to come back and ensure that we have a future to get to.
Hey, maybe.
I would love
Boom.
that. That'd be better.
Boom.
Be less scary.
When you say like they crash sometimes and stuff, like they goes like, how have they come to the conclusion that UAP are being released by our ET? If they don't know what the UAP are to begin with, or if there's nothing inside of them, he goes, they crash sometimes. Parts fail, and gravity engines near the surface of the planet can be like crossing an intersection. We recover these and sometimes find passengers. We mostly see drones now, but in the earlier days, we saw a lot more piloted craft. So there's the answer I was referencing, is what he's saying. Is like, I guess coming into Earth can be weird.
In the early days? What does the early days mean?
I'm assuming the early 40s and 50s when the UFO event started happening.
And the last 70, 80 years, they decided to just not do pilots anymore. The aliens were like, bro, it's getting crazy out there.
He actually elaborates. He goes, usually when we find a thinner model, for example, it would have no pilot and a lot of sensory hardware. My favorite is finding one that is fitted for research. If we are lucky, we find things we have never seen before. Before I left, we were looking at what we thought was a lab for some kind of genetics. He hasn't been. He's left the program 2 years ago. He's not there anymore.
So bold to say things like that.
I know. It's just like, you know, again, take it with a grain of fucking salt. You know, it's some rando on the internet. I know. But now, you know, pair that with what we now have seen in video form. It's interesting. Some of those tickle, but it's somebody who could also have seen those videos and then easily elaborated on his own for
for sure. I mean, that's so. All you have to do is be in the world of entertainment and care about stuff to know, like, every time a new game or a new movie comes out, there's always some dude who pieced together like 8 trailers into what he thinks the movie is. And because there's some like, oh, dude, that was in the trailer, people buy it easily. I mean, it happens. People do that stuff just because they get their kicks.
So it's easy to dismiss stuff like that. But the videos, like the one I showed you today, the one you showed me a few days ago, Jesse, those are the creme de la creme. The stuff that makes you go, I don't know what the fuck that is. And then it's wild. So that's it. More, you know, UFO news has been crazy. I'm very excited for the NASA public hearing in a couple weeks. Alex, are you good?
I'm so good. And in fact, I'm better than good, because now we're going to do this. And I'm so sorry to everybody who likes these to be short. I'm really sorry.
Are you about to do another hour?
Yeah, well, I'm going to do a full episode right now. No, that would be...
Good night, everybody.
I'm going to do 100 minutes. No, Patreon.com/Chilluminati Pod and the makers of the Greenstone series on Chilluminati present our new show. Get ready for the name. Here we go. Giuseppe La Rosa and the Order of Meonia. Part 1. White Lady, Red Stone. Here we go. So last we left our story, we met our new audience insert character and narrator, Chronicles of Meonia author, Giuseppe, or Joe, as he likes to be called, La Rosa, who at the time was a new inductee to the Order of Meonia, as they call themselves, even though in reality they are merely the latest version of the Nine, who
I feel like every time the story starts back up, my brain fogs. I'm moving through a weird foggy forest, and I open my eyes, and it's just chaos. And I'm like, I'm back. I'm back.
Nine. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the Nine and the Order.
The ancient order, the Nine, they've existed forever. They keep the forces of darkness and light in balance. They correct the mistakes of the past. Joe.
What if that's the UFOs right there?
Yeah, it could be.
The Greenstone is the reason for everything.
Just wait.
Yes.
We can look at Joe, our new character, as kind of like the Trevor Belmont to the Simon Belmont. Okay. He's like the new class.
Right, sure. He's the next gen.
Yeah, he looks to Graham Phillips and the heroes of the Order who were around for the Greenstone saga as role models. I don't know if it's because he wasn't actually as close to everyone as he claims or whatever, or if he really was just like a really dedicated part-timer, but I think it's funny how he tries to do his Indiana Jonesing type stuff while he has a good work-life balance, and you'll see what I mean more about that.
He needs to have his own solo career.
It's true. But anyway, to get us started, Gaynor, the UFO child, has a vision of a red stone, just like the green one, and witnesses one of the previous leaders of the Nine being killed in 1865 by a huge, imposing black magician called John Lang, or by some accounts, John Langley. And this woman is succeeded by Mary Heath as leader of the Order, who lived and operated the society out of that weird Egypt manor house thing that I showed you called
Beautiful hedges around it, though.
Yeah, really, really crazy. That's in Staffordshire. And then 10 years later, in 1875, when Lang is about to destroy them again, Mary Heath hides the stone for safekeeping, the red stone, that is, with only a bell hidden at a place nearby called Ranton Abbey to point the way. So now we're looking for the bell. Mary Heath used the power of the stone to put a potent protection spell on the bell, so that only the person she chose to carry on the legacy of the Nine could use it. But that person died before they were able to get the red stone, which left the Order to deal with a malfunctioning, cursed spirit beast with glitched out programming that they have to deal with if they ever want to see the red stone again, better known as the Eye of Fire, much less trying to stop it from falling into the wrong hands.
Sauron watches you wherever you are.
Honest to God, it just sounds like you're reading us the Wikipedia summary of a fantasy novel. This is insane.
And yet it's all unfortunately true. And again,
is it though?
According to the book that I read, it is true. Again, fair I'm not saying our guy Joe isn't being fully honest about his role and everything that went down. But here's a quote from him that made me laugh. This is for Jesse to read. I'm dropping it in the chat.
The excursion was planned for Saturday, the 24th of July. Unfortunately, due to prior commitments, I was unable to go with the rest of the group.
I like how we capitalized group.
Yes, group. Group. But over the phone, I vowed to Terry that I would drive over to his house later that day. Feeling bitterly disappointed, I was determined not to let my friends down in the future.
So, like, for the first, 4 things that he talks about, he's like, it was so cool, but I couldn't go. It was so sad that I couldn't go. So basically he doesn't go. A bunch of the OG Greenstone crew go out to Ranton Abbey, looking for the bell. Ranton Abbey has also got a hunting lodge attached. It's all overgrown and crumbling. And as with a lot of things in this tale, it's down to the wire on time. They're just wandering around the property in little groups, relying on Marion and Gaynor's psychic hunches to guide them. There's minutes to go. Things suddenly get screwy. People start to get confused. They see things from far away. They hear weird voices. And before they can find the bell, Gaynor and Marion realize that they've triggered the Guardian spell entity and that it's going to come after them. They don't know what to expect, but they try to team up and hold it off. And it turns out that it's actually much worse than they thought. It's an invisible monster that can toss things around, make you physically ill. It can drain everyone's energy. They're no match for this thing. It plays with them like silly putty. It seems really dire for a second. And then here's a short excerpt of what happens next from Mathis to read. The exact amount of this type of stuff that you want before I'm done.
Where's that bloody bell, thought Terry, his tortured mind reeling at the horrific sound of the Guardian. In front of him, he saw a light switch. An intuitive flash made him tap the plaster a few inches above it. A dull sound emanated from the wall. Terry instinctively knew there was a cavity there. Pounding on the wall with his hammer, a chunk of plaster came crashing out, scattering a pall of dust over him. I wouldn't use that word. That was very confusing. Terry stood back for a moment of disbelief. There, lodged in the narrow recess, sat a small bronze bell. Hardly able to believe what he was seeing, Terry reached out and deftly removed it from its hiding place. "I've found it," he shouted, his voice almost trembling with emotion. "I've got the bell!"
So they got the bell, and as they left, the Guardian screamed in anger, and they drove away, and they knew that things weren't over and that the Guardian was not fucking around. Next thing that happens, Graham and Marion both have a simultaneous vision of Guevara, the lady in white, prying the eye of fire from the hilt of a mighty sword, possibly Excalibur, near two white pillars of stone and a cave. They deduce that the next step is to go find that cave, and after looking at a bunch of pictures, they decide that's actually a place called Ilam Rock, which is in Derbyshire along the Dove Valley. And
Do they have crystals to mine there for your lightsaber?
Dude, I know, right?
Thank you.
It's like
All right.
literally.
I was going for it. Come on.
He's got
saw the
Jedi
blade.
Survivor on the mind. He's got
No.
Jedi Survivor on the mind. Forgive him.
I do.
folks.
It's true.
Yeah. The first time they went out there to the cave and they rang the bell, it was really anticlimactic, so they decided to try again the next weekend, since it was Sunday, August 1st, which made it Lungnasad, which is some kind of fire festival, which, you know, Eye of Fire, ancient Celtic fire festival, kind of some synergy going on there. So that's their plan. In the week between, one of the group, Susan, has a vision that she needs to perform a sacred rite known as the Charge of the Lamb before ringing the bell, which she needs a big fire and 9 flat stones for. Everyone was happy to help her get prepped while they're out there at the cave, since apparently the last anyone was on record as trying the Charge of the Lamb was on July 31st, 1316, when Charlene Fitzwarren, the wife of a, quote, certain gentleman called Robert Fitzwarren, did it, and she died doing it. So this is a serious ritual that charges the energy that they need to communicate.
It better be serious if she fucking died.
Yeah, it took her about an hour to do it carefully. It involved a white-handled knife and the sword and the bell, and she filled some bowls with water, and she drew some symbols near the cave entrance.
I'm taking notes for my D&D campaign.
Yep, she went around arranging everything with 8 colored stones, and she called out to the spirits, and she did some chanting, and in the end, the bell was charged, and she tried to ring it a few times. They realized that it was Terry who needed to ring it because he was the one who found the bell, and the Guardian was attached to Terry.
All rituals need to have some sort of orgy involved, and if it doesn't, there's no real magic happening.
Is it really a ritual? Yeah, good point.
You're right.
Solid point.
You're right. But maybe they just excluded that because it was too bawdy for the general audience.
Maybe.
But basically, he strikes the bell with his pen because they lose the knocker, and there was wind and the sound of a choir singing far away, and they follow the sound, and it leads to a vision that they all saw together of the woman in white up the trail. They follow her. They see her. The woman in white is up the trail. She looks like a Celtic warrior, female warrior with red hair. She leads them out of the cave back to the place they saw in the vision with the 2 big white stone pillars, the Ilam Rocks, and they go in another cave and gives them the message that the stone is not there, but that now she's bonded to them and that she's going to be their guide going forward. And they go their separate ways after getting back to the car and driving home. And while some waited for further instruction, Marion Sunderland, Gainer's mom, was at home trying to make contact with Guevara. And ever since they'd found the bell, she hadn't been feeling well. And after being tired out from a particularly taxing psychic section, she suddenly awoke to a presence just down the hall, creeping through the house with dull thuds, making its way slowly towards her. And to close us out with a little cliffhanger here, here's the last excerpt from Joe's book for today for Jesse to read about what happened next. Here we go.
Of course. Okay. He said to me, "Do you want to stop Snape from getting that stone or
Stop
not?"
it.
Harry,
No, that's not what it
you
says.
that has to go on. I know it.
That's not what it says.
Not Hermione.
That's not what it says.
Oh, sorry. You mean from this very real story?
It's not what it
right,
says.
Right.
That's not what it says.
The room was icy cold, the air still, and deadly a deadly silence. We'll say,
baby.
a deadly silence, like a heavy pall enshrouded her. Marion held her breath as the handle began to slowly move. The door began to open. Unable to move, Mario sat helplessly.
I can't believe the typos.
Open.
These are copy pasted.
Marion, I assume, sat helplessly, fear like she had never known gripping her mind. She wanted to scream, but was unable to do so. A frigid blast of air struck her as the door was pushed completely open. Marion stared in horror at what confronted her, her eyes wide and uncomprehending. No horror movie could have prepared her for this living nightmare. Her mind screamed in silent terror. In the doorway was a naked, corpse-like figure, two cold, motionless eyes staring directly at her.
What does you think he means by corpse-like figure and not a...
Corpse-like, it's still alive.
Oh,
well, you'll see in a second.
Okay.
But the face that she was looking at was her own, her doppelganger. Now too late, she understood the power of the Guardian, capital G. No one was safe. Well, she knew that all would be destroyed. Marion's senses began to swim. At last, she was able to scream as an unearthly wail rose from the depths of her being. A tide of darkness washed over her, and Marion's deathly double melted from view as her mind slipped into unconsciousness.
Don't be mad. This just sounds like high schoolers' first creative writing class happened.
To be continued. On the next minisode, this thrilling tale will be continued.
An unearthly wail swelled from beyond. Oh, we'll see you next week, everybody.
You've heard of the Greenstone. What is the Redstone? What side of the building? Find out next time.
Enjoying ourselves. I needed to go to the bathroom, so I stepped back inside, and after a few moments, I hear my wife go, "Holy shit, get out here." So I quickly dash back outside, and she's looking up at the sky in awe. I look up too, and there's a perfect line of dozen lights traveling across the sky.